Captain Elena Vasquez had always been the best pilot on Kepler Station. Her reflexes were lightning fast, her spatial awareness was perfect, and she could thread a needle with a fighter craft at maximum velocity. That's why nobody understood what happened during the routine patrol mission that changed everything. The morning started like any other on the remote military outpost. Kepler Station orbited a gas giant in the outer rim, monitoring alien activity in the sector. Elena walked through the corridors with her usual confident stride, nodding to fellow officers and enlisted personnel who respected her skills. She had earned every stripe on her uniform through pure talent and determination. Colonel Marcus Hayes called her into his office just before her scheduled patrol. Hayes was a stern man with gray hair and cold blue eyes who rarely showed emotion. He had been commanding Kepler Station for 3 years, and everyone knew he ran a tight ship. "Vasquez, I need you to take a different route today," Hayes said, handing her a data pad with new coordinates. "Intelligence has picked up some unusual readings in Sector 7. I want you to investigate personally." Elena studied the coordinates. Sector 7 was mostly empty space, far from their usual patrol routes. "Sir, this is pretty far out. Shouldn't we send a full squadron for an investigation like this?" "Negative. This is a reconnaissance mission only. Get in, scan the area, report back. Simple as that." Hayes leaned back in his chair. "You're the best pilot we have, Vasquez. If there's something out there, I need someone I can trust to handle it properly." Something about the colonel's tone bothered Elena, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. She had never questioned his orders before, and she wasn't about to start now. "Understood, sir. How long do you want me to stay in the area?" "As long as it takes to get a complete picture. Could be a few hours, could be longer. Use your judgment." Hayes dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "And Vasquez, this mission is classified. Don't discuss it with anyone else on the base." Elena left the colonel's office feeling uneasy. Classified solo missions weren't unusual, but something felt different about this one. She tried to shake off her concerns as she made her way to the hangar bay. Her fighter, a sleek Raptor-class interceptor, was already prepped and ready for launch. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez was doing final checks on the engines when Elena arrived. "She's all yours, Captain. Fuel tanks are full, weapon systems are green, and I've loaded extra sensor equipment per the colonel's request." "Extra sensors?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't told about any special equipment." Rodriguez shrugged. "Orders came down from the top. Some kind of deep space scanning array, way more powerful than our standard gear." He patted the hull of the fighter affectionately. "Should give you eyes on anything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Elena climbed into the cockpit and ran through her pre-flight checklist. Everything looked normal except for the additional sensor controls that had been installed. The equipment was definitely military grade, but it was more sophisticated than anything she had seen before. The displays showed capabilities that seemed almost too advanced for human technology. As she powered up the engines, Elena contacted the control tower. "Tower, this is Raptor 1 requesting permission for departure." "Raptor 1, you are cleared for launch." "Safe flying, Captain." The fighter lifted off smoothly and accelerated away from Kepler Station. Elena had made this journey hundreds of times, but today felt different. The vast emptiness of space seemed more ominous than usual, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The flight to Sector 7 took 2 hours at cruising speed. Elena used the time to familiarize herself with the new sensor equipment. The more she studied the controls, the more impressive the technology became. The scanning array could detect energy signatures, gravitational anomalies, and even trace amounts of exotic matter across incredible distances. When she reached the designated coordinates, Elena began her reconnaissance sweep. The area appeared empty at first glance, just like the rest of the outer rim. But as she activated the enhanced sensors, something extraordinary appeared on her displays. There was a massive structure hidden in the shadow of a small asteroid. The object was clearly artificial, but its design was unlike anything in human databases. Smooth curves and crystalline surfaces reflected starlight in patterns that seemed almost alive. The structure was enormous, easily the size of a space station, but it showed no signs of active power systems or life support. Elena's heart raced as she realized what she had discovered. This was clearly alien technology, far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered before. She needed to get closer for detailed scans, but protocol required her to report the discovery immediately. She opened a channel back to Kepler Station. Base, this is Raptor 1. I've located the source of the energy readings. You're not going to believe this. Static filled her headset for several seconds before Colonel Hayes responded. His voice sounded strangely calm for someone receiving news of first contact. What's your status, Vasquez? Sir, I've found what appears to be an alien structure. It's massive and definitely not human in origin. I'm preparing to conduct detailed scans now. There was another long pause before Hayes replied. Negative, Vasquez. Return to base immediately. Do not approach the object under any circumstances. Elena was stunned. This was the discovery of the century, and the colonel wanted her to just fly away. Sir, with respect, we need to gather intelligence on this structure. This could change everything we know about alien civilizations. You have your orders, Captain. Return to base now. That's a direct command. The tension in Hayes' voice was unmistakable now. Elena realized that something was very wrong with this entire situation. The colonel had sent her out here knowing what she would find, and now he was ordering her to ignore the most important discovery in human history. She made a decision that would change her life forever. Sorry, sir, but I'm experiencing some communication difficulties. I'm going to complete my reconnaissance mission as originally planned. Elena switched off her radio and turned her fighter toward the alien structure. Whatever was happening back on Kepler Station could wait. Humanity deserved to know the truth about what was hidden in Sector 7, and she was going to make sure they got it. Elena approached the alien structure with a mixture of excitement and caution. As her fighter drew closer, the enhanced sensors revealed incredible details about the mysterious object. The surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. Energy readings showed the structure was definitely active, despite appearing dormant from a distance. The ship's computer began recording everything automatically. Elena knew this data would be invaluable to xenobiology researchers and military strategists back on Earth. She maneuvered her fighter in a slow orbit around the structure, mapping every surface and taking detailed readings of its composition. Suddenly, her radio crackled back to life. Colonel Hayes' voice cut through the static filled with anger and urgency. Vasquez, I know you can hear me. You are in direct violation of orders. Return to base immediately or I will be forced to take action. Elena ignored the transmission and continued her scans. The structure was even more impressive up close. It appeared to be constructed from materials that didn't exist in any human database. The energy signatures suggested some kind of power source that was completely beyond current human understanding. Her sensor array detected something else that made her blood run cold. There were human life signs inside the structure. At least 12 people were aboard the alien vessel, and their bio readings suggested they were alive but unconscious. Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Had humans already made contact with this alien race? Were these people prisoners or were they willing participants in some kind of exchange program? Either way, she couldn't abandon them now that she knew they were there. She activated her ship's external cameras and began broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. If there were other human ships in the area, they needed to know about this situation. But as she transmitted her findings, something unexpected happened. 3 military fighters appeared on her sensors, approaching fast from the direction of Kepler Station. Elena recognized the signatures immediately as Raptor-class interceptors just like her own. Colonel Hayes had sent a squadron to bring her back, and they weren't coming to chat. Raptor 1, this is Raptor 4. You are ordered to return to base immediately. Do not make this more difficult than it needs to be. The voice belonged to Major Thompson, one of Elena's fellow pilots and someone she had considered a friend. Elena switched to a private channel. Thompson, you need to see what I've found here. There are humans aboard an alien vessel and they need our help. Whatever the colonel told you about this mission, he's not telling the whole truth. Elena, I don't know what you think you've discovered, but the colonel has declared you mentally unfit for duty. You're ordered to stand down and return for psychological evaluation. Thompson's voice was strained as if he didn't believe his own words. The accusation hit Elena like a physical blow. Hayes was using the oldest trick in the military playbook, questioning her mental state to discredit anything she might report. If she returned to base now, she would be locked up in medical, while the colonel covered up the greatest discovery in human history. Thompson, I'm uploading my sensor data to you right now. Look at the readings and tell me I'm imagining things. Elena transmitted everything she had recorded to the approaching fighters. For several minutes, radio silence filled space around the alien structure. Elena could imagine the shocked faces of her fellow pilots as they studied the impossible data she had sent them. Finally, Thompson's voice returned, but it sounded different now. Elena, what the hell is that thing? And are those really human life signs inside it? Before Elena could respond, Colonel Hayes broke into the channel. All Raptor Squadron pilots disregard any data transmitted by Captain Vasquez. She is suffering from a severe psychological break and is creating false sensor readings. Use whatever force is necessary to bring her back to base. Elena felt her heart sink as she realized the depth of the conspiracy she was facing. Hayes was willing to sacrifice the lives of the humans aboard the alien vessel to keep this discovery secret. But why would he want to hide first contact from the rest of humanity? Major Thompson's voice came over the radio again, but this time he was speaking only to Elena on their private channel. I've analyzed your data and it's definitely real. But Hayes has threatened court-martial for anyone who doesn't follow his orders. I've got a family back on Earth, Elena. I can't risk everything. Then help me save those people, Elena replied. We can figure out the politics later, but right now there are humans who need rescue. Elena made another decision that would define the rest of her career. She activated her fighter's stealth systems and dove toward the alien structure. If she could dock with the vessel and rescue the human prisoners, she would have proof that couldn't be denied or covered up. The other fighters tried to follow her, but Elena's superior piloting skills allowed her to lose them in the shadow of the asteroid field. She approached the alien structure carefully, looking for some kind of docking port or airlock. As her fighter drew near the vessel's surface, something remarkable happened. A section of the hull began to glow with soft blue light, and Elena watched in amazement as an opening appeared where none had existed before. The alien ship was responding to her presence, creating a docking bay specifically for her fighter. Elena guided her ship into the opening, and the aperture sealed behind her. She found herself in a chamber filled with breathable atmosphere and artificial gravity. The technology required to accomplish such feats was centuries beyond anything humans possessed. She quickly donned her environmental suit and exited her fighter. The interior of the alien vessel was unlike anything she had ever seen. Walls curved in impossible directions and surfaces seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Despite the alien architecture, Elena noticed that everything seemed designed to accommodate human-sized beings. Following the life sign readings on her scanner, Elena made her way deeper into the structure. She passed through corridors lined with what appeared to be crystalline computer terminals and rooms filled with equipment she couldn't begin to understand. The air hummed with energy, but there was no sense of danger or hostility. Finally, she reached a large chamber where the human life signs were strongest. What she found there would change everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the universe. 12 people in military uniforms were suspended in cylindrical chambers filled with glowing liquid. Elena recognized several faces from missing person reports that had circulated through the fleet over the past year. These weren't prisoners or volunteers for some secret program. They were missing soldiers who had supposedly died in training accidents or deep space missions gone wrong. Elena realized with growing horror that Colonel Hayes had been feeding humans to this alien vessel for months, possibly years, but why? What did the aliens want with human subjects, and what were they giving Hayes in return? As she studied the suspension chambers, Elena noticed that the people inside weren't unconscious as her sensors had indicated. Their eyes were open and they were aware of their surroundings. They had been paralyzed but left conscious to experience whatever experiments were being conducted on them. Elena began working frantically to free the prisoners, but she quickly discovered that the alien technology was beyond her understanding. Every control surface she touched responded in unexpected ways, and she couldn't figure out how to safely release the trapped humans. That's when she heard footsteps behind her. Elena spun around to find Colonel Hayes walking into the chamber, no longer wearing his military uniform but instead dressed in strange robes that seemed to shift color in the alien light. I really hoped it wouldn't come to this, Vasquez, Hayes said sadly. You were always too curious for your own good. Elena stared at Colonel Hayes in shock, her hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm. The man she had served under for 2 years was standing in an alien vessel, wearing robes that seemed to be made from the same materials as the ship itself. Nothing about this situation made sense. Colonel, what's going on here? How did you get aboard this ship? Elena kept her voice steady despite the fear growing in her chest. And what have you done to these people? Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. I've been working with our hosts for quite some time, Captain. This vessel has been stationed in Sector 7 for over a year now, and we've developed a very beneficial relationship. Elena's mind raced as she tried to process this information. Beneficial for who? These people are being held prisoner and experimented on. How could you possibly justify this? You're thinking like a typical human, Vasquez. Small-minded and short-sighted. Hayes gestured toward the suspension chambers. These volunteers are helping advance medical science by centuries. The knowledge we're gaining will eventually save millions of lives. Volunteers? Elena looked at the terrified faces of the people trapped in the chambers. These are missing soldiers who were reported dead. Their families think they died serving their country, not that they were handed over to aliens for experiments. Hayes shrugged dismissively. Sacrifices must be made for the greater good. The beings who operate this vessel have offered humanity incredible gifts in exchange for research subjects, technologies that will revolutionize space travel, medicine, and energy production. Elena felt sick as she realized the scope of the Colonel's betrayal. You've been murdering your own people and covering it up. How many others know about this? Enough, Hayes replied cryptically. This project goes all the way to the top of the military command structure. Earth needs what these beings can provide, and they need human test subjects to perfect their biological research. Suddenly, Elena understood why Hayes had sent her to Sector 7. You were setting me up. You needed another test subject, and you thought I would be perfect because I'm a skilled pilot. Exactly right. Your reflexes and physical conditioning make you an ideal candidate for their neural interface experiments. Hayes nodded toward something behind Elena. And now that you're here, we can proceed with the next phase of research. Elena spun around to see three tall, slender figures emerging from alcoves she hadn't noticed before. The aliens were humanoid in basic shape, but clearly not human. Their skin had a translucent quality that revealed complex circulatory systems beneath the surface. Their eyes were large and multifaceted like insects, and their movements were fluid and graceful. One of the aliens approached Elena, and she was surprised to hear it speak in perfect English. Captain Vasquez, we have been monitoring your career for some time. Your spatial awareness and reaction times are exceptional even by human standards. Elena drew her sidearm and pointed it at the alien, but Hayes laughed. That won't help you here, Captain. Their personal shielding can stop anything short of a tactical nuclear weapon. The alien continued speaking as if Elena's weapon didn't exist. We have offered your species a path to technological advancement in exchange for voluntary participation in our research. Colonel Hayes has been very helpful in identifying suitable candidates. Suitable candidates who never volunteered for anything, Elena snapped. You're talking about kidnapping and experimentation. We prefer to think of it as accelerated evolution, the alien replied calmly. The subjects we study are helping both our species advance beyond their current limitations. The knowledge gained benefits everyone. Elena looked back at the people trapped in the suspension chambers. Their eyes pleaded with her for help, but she was outnumbered and outgunned. She needed to find a way to free them and escape, but first she had to understand what she was really facing. What kind of experiments are you conducting? She asked, trying to buy time while she studied the chamber for possible escape routes. The alien gestured toward complex machinery Elena hadn't noticed before. We are studying human neural patterns and their interaction with advanced technology. Your species has unique qualities that make you ideal for biological integration with synthetic systems. Elena's blood ran cold as she realized what they meant. You're trying to turn humans into cyborgs. A crude but not entirely inaccurate description, the alien confirmed. We have discovered that human consciousness can be enhanced and expanded through careful integration with our technology. The subjects you see here are pioneers in this process. Hayes stepped closer to Elena, his expression eager. Imagine being able to pilot a starship with your thoughts alone, or process information at the speed of a computer. These beings are offering humanity the chance to transcend our biological limitations. By torturing people and stealing their humanity, Elena shot back. Look at their faces. Do they look transcended to you, or do they look terrified? For the first time, Hayes looked uncomfortable. The process requires some adjustment period. Eventually, they'll understand the gift they've been given. Elena noticed that one of the people in the suspension chambers was trying to communicate with her. The woman's eyes were moving in a specific pattern, and Elena realized she was trying to spell out a message using blinks. Elena focused on the pattern and gradually made out the words, "Kill switch," and "behind you." Elena glanced around casually and spotted what the woman was indicating. Hidden behind one of the alien control panels was a small device that looked distinctly human in design. It appeared to be some kind of emergency system that Hayes had installed as a failsafe. Elena knew she had only one chance to act. She needed to create a distraction and get to that device before the aliens could stop her. The lives of 12 people depended on her making the right choice in the next few seconds. She looked directly at Hayes and saw something she hadn't expected. Despite his words about the greater good and transcendence, there was doubt in his eyes. Maybe part of him still remembered what it meant to be human. "Colonel, you still have a chance to do the right thing," Elena said quietly. "Help me free these people, and we can find another way to work with these beings. One that doesn't involve kidnapping and forced experimentation." Hayes hesitated for a moment, and Elena saw a flicker of the man she had once respected. But then his expression hardened again. "It's too late for that, Vasquez. The process has already begun, and there's no going back now." The alien stepped forward and placed a hand on Elena's shoulder. She felt a strange tingling sensation as some kind of energy field surrounded her. "Do not be afraid, Captain. You will be the first human to experience our gift willingly. Your cooperation will make the process much more pleasant." Elena knew this was her last chance. She pretended to stumble backward, as if overcome by whatever the alien was doing to her. As she fell, she rolled toward the human device hidden behind the control panel. Her hand found the activation switch just as the aliens realized what she was doing. The chamber filled with blinding light as Elena triggered what she hoped was an emergency system. Alarms began wailing throughout the alien vessel, and she heard the distinctive sound of technology powering down. The suspension chambers began draining their liquid contents, and the trapped humans started to regain mobility. Elena had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. The real battle was just beginning. The emergency system Elena had activated worked better than she could have hoped. Throughout the alien vessel, lights flickered and died as power systems failed in sequence. The suspension chambers opened with a hiss of escaping gases, and the 12 trapped humans began stumbling out of their prison cylinders. Elena rushed to help the nearest person, a young lieutenant she recognized from the officers' mess on Kepler Station. The man was disoriented and weak, but alive and conscious. "Lieutenant Morrison, can you hear me? We need to get out of here right now." Morrison nodded weakly, coughing up residual fluid from the suspension chamber. "Captain Vasquez? How did you find us? We thought we were going to die in those things." Before Elena could answer, Colonel Hayes shouted over the wailing alarms. "You don't understand what you've done. This ship's life support systems are connected to the same power grid. You've doomed us all." Elena looked around and saw that Hayes was right. The aliens were moving frantically around their control panels, trying to restore power to critical systems. Without life support, they would all suffocate within hours. But Elena had noticed something the colonel hadn't. The emergency system was designed to preserve human life above all else. As she helped more people out of the suspension chambers, Elena realized that the device she had activated was actually a human-built safety system. Someone had anticipated this exact scenario and installed a backup plan. The ship's life support wasn't failing completely. It was switching to emergency power that would keep the human sections of the vessel habitable while shutting down the alien experimental equipment. The lead alien approached, Elena with obvious anger in its multifaceted eyes. "You have disrupted months of careful research and endangered all our lives. The ship's systems are not designed to handle this kind of emergency shutdown." Elena stood her ground despite the alien's intimidating presence. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you started kidnapping humans for your experiments. How were you planning to explain 12 missing people to their families? Their sacrifice would have advanced both our species by centuries," the alien replied coldly. "Now that progress is lost, and we may all die as a result of your interference." Colonel Hayes was helping the aliens try to restore power, but Elena could see the fear in his face. Whatever deal he had made with these beings, he was starting to realize it might cost him his life. "Vasquez, you need to help us fix this. If the ship's reactor goes critical, it will destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers." Elena turned to the rescued humans, who were gradually regaining their strength. "Can anyone here work with alien technology? We need to figure out how to stabilize this ship without giving them back control of their experimental equipment." Sergeant Williams, a communications specialist, stepped forward. "Captain, I spent 6 months studying their systems while I was conscious in that chamber. I think I understand how their technology interfaces with our equipment. Elena felt a surge of hope. If Williams could help them navigate the alien systems, they might be able to take control of the ship and escape. What do you need from us? Williams pointed to a series of crystalline interfaces near the main control console. Their technology responds to human neural patterns in ways they don't fully understand. That's why they needed us for their experiments. But if we work together, we might be able to override their control systems. The alien leader overheard the conversation and moved to block their access to the controls. You cannot be allowed to interfere further. Our research is too valuable to lose. Elena drew her sidearm again, knowing it was useless against their personal shields but hoping it would buy them time. Your research involves torturing innocent people. That makes it worthless no matter what you might discover. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently as something impacted the hull. Elena's radio crackled with Major Thompson's voice. Elena, we're reading massive power fluctuations from the alien vessel. What's your status in there? Elena keyed her radio while keeping her weapon trained on the aliens. Thompson, I found the missing personnel and they're alive. But we need immediate evacuation. This ship is becoming unstable. Copy that. We're preparing to dock with your fighter bay. Can you secure the area? Elena looked around the chamber and made a quick decision. The aliens were focused on their failing systems, and Hayes was too concerned about his own survival to interfere. This was their chance to escape with proof of the conspiracy. Williams, can you download their research data while we evacuate? We need evidence of what they've been doing here. Elena began helping the weaker rescued personnel toward the exit. Williams nodded and moved to one of the alien control panels. His hands moved across the crystalline interfaces with surprising skill, and Elena could see data streaming across the displays. Got it, Captain. Everything they've learned about human neural patterns and their experimental procedures. Colonel Hayes suddenly lunged toward Williams, trying to stop the data transfer. You can't take that information. It belongs to Earth Command under the terms of our agreement. Elena intercepted Hayes and pinned him against the wall. The only agreement here was your deal to sell out your own species. That stops now. As Elena held Hayes, she noticed that the lead alien was watching the scene with what might have been curiosity. Despite the failing systems and the ruined experiment, the being seemed more interested in human behavior than in fixing its ship. Fascinating, the alien murmured. Your species demonstrates such complex loyalty patterns. You risk your lives to save individuals who have no strategic value to your larger society. Elena stared at the alien in disbelief. Strategic value? These are people, not resources to be used and discarded. That's what makes us different from you. Indeed, the alien replied thoughtfully. We have learned much from observing your species, but perhaps not what we originally intended to study. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the transparent sections of the hull, Elena could see her fellow pilots maneuvering their fighters into docking position. Lieutenant Morrison and the other rescued personnel were strong enough to walk now, and Williams had completed his data download. Elena made a final decision that would define how humanity dealt with alien contact in the future. Instead of simply escaping, she turned to the alien leader. Your ship is dying and your crew is in danger. Come with us. We can find a way to work together that doesn't involve experimenting on prisoners. The alien tilted its head in what might have been confusion. You would offer aid to beings who held your people captive? That's what humans do, Elena replied simply. We help people in need even when they've wronged us. Maybe that's something your species could learn from us. Colonel Hayes struggled in Elena's grip. You can't trust them, Vasquez. They'll just use any kindness against us later. Elena looked at Hayes with disgust. Like you used their technology against your own people? At least they were honest about what they wanted. The alien leader gestured to its companions and they began shutting down their remaining systems in what appeared to be an orderly evacuation procedure. Perhaps there is wisdom in your approach, Captain Vasquez. We accept your offer of assistance. As Elena led the group toward the docking bay where Thompson's fighters were waiting, she realized that this moment would change human-alien relations forever. Instead of first contact being defined by fear and exploitation, it might actually become a foundation for mutual understanding. The real test would come when they returned to Kepler Station and had to explain to Earth Command why their secret alien partnership had been exposed by a captain who refused to follow illegal orders. The evacuation from the alien vessel went more smoothly than Elena had expected. Major Thompson and his squadron had brought emergency life support equipment and medical supplies, allowing them to safely transport all 12 rescued humans, plus the 3 alien crew members back to Kepler Station. During the flight back, Elena learned more about what had really been happening. Sergeant Williams, who had remained conscious during most of his captivity, explained that the aliens called themselves the Kethvar and claimed to be explorers and researchers from a distant galaxy. They had been studying various species throughout the local star cluster for what they described as peaceful purposes. "The thing is, Captain," Williams said over the comm system, "I don't think they really understood that we were suffering. Their species doesn't experience pain or fear the way humans do. To them, our distress signals were just interesting data points." Elena found this revelation both disturbing and oddly hopeful. If the aliens' cruelty was based on ignorance rather than malice, there might be a chance for peaceful coexistence. But first, she had to deal with the conspiracy that had made their experiments possible in the first place. As the fighters approached Kepler Station, Elena noticed unusual activity around the base. Several ships that she didn't recognize were docked at the station, and the normal patrol schedules seemed to have been suspended. Something big was happening, and she suspected it was related to her discovery. "Thompson, are you seeing what I'm seeing?" "Those aren't regular fleet vessels," Elena transmitted to the squadron leader. "Confirmed. I'm reading Earth Command insignia on at least 3 of those ships. Looks like word of our situation has already reached the top of the chain of command." Thompson's voice carried a mixture of concern and relief. Elena's radio crackled with a new voice she didn't recognize. "Raptor Squadron, this is Admiral Sarah Chen aboard the ECS Determination. You are ordered to proceed directly to Hangar Bay 7 upon arrival. All personnel involved in today's mission are to report for immediate debriefing." Elena had heard of Admiral Chen. She was one of the most respected officers in the Earth Fleet and known for her integrity and dedication to protecting human rights. If she was here, it meant Elena's transmission of the alien vessel's location had reached people who took the situation seriously. As they landed in the designated hangar bay, Elena saw that Kepler Station had been essentially taken over by Earth Command security forces. Colonel Hayes was immediately separated from the group and escorted away by military police, while medical teams began examining the rescued personnel. Elena helped the alien crew members exit their transport, noting the curious stares they received from the station personnel. Despite everything that had happened, she felt responsible for their safety. They had agreed to come peacefully, and she intended to make sure they were treated with respect. Admiral Chen met them personally in the hangar bay. She was a small woman with graying hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in every detail of the situation. "Captain Vasquez, I've reviewed your preliminary reports and the data you transmitted. What you've uncovered here goes far beyond a simple violation of military protocol." Elena saluted the Admiral, still unsure what consequences she might face for disobeying orders and exposing the conspiracy. "Ma'am, I was just trying to protect the lives of my fellow service members. I couldn't stand by and let them be used as experimental subjects." Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. "You made the right choice, Captain. What Colonel Hayes was doing here violated every principle the Earth Fleet stands for. The question now is how we move forward with first contact procedures." Elena gestured toward the 3 alien crew members who were standing quietly near the transport ship. "Admiral, they've agreed to cooperate with us. I believe their previous actions were based on misunderstanding rather than hostile intent." The lead alien stepped forward and addressed Admiral Chen directly. "Admiral, I am Research Coordinator Zeph Hai of the Kethvar Collective. We wish to formally apologize for the harm we have caused to your people. We did not understand the nature of human consciousness and the suffering our research methods created." Admiral Chen studied the alien carefully. "Research Coordinator, your people conducted unauthorized experiments on kidnapped human subjects. That's going to be difficult to overlook, regardless of your intentions." Zeph Hai's large eyes seemed to dim slightly. "We understand your anger, Admiral. In our society, consciousness exists in a collective state. Individual suffering is not a concept we naturally comprehend. However, our time studying your people has taught us that human individuality and capacity for both suffering and compassion are remarkable traits that we greatly respect." Elena watched the exchange with fascination. This was first contact happening in real time, and it was nothing like the scenarios they had trained for in the academy. Instead of weapons and territorial disputes, they were dealing with fundamental differences in how two species understood consciousness and ethics. Admiral Chen seemed to reach a decision. Research coordinator, I'm willing to consider a formal diplomatic relationship between our species, but there will have to be conditions. Any future research involving humans must be conducted with full informed consent and under human oversight. We find these terms acceptable, Zephahai replied immediately. In fact, we believe we have much to learn from human ethical frameworks. Your Captain Vasquez has demonstrated principles that our science did not account for. Elena felt a strange sense of pride at being mentioned by the alien, but she was more concerned about the practical implications of the situation. Admiral, what about the other people who were involved in this conspiracy? Colonel Hayes mentioned that the project had approval from high levels of command. Admiral Chen's expression darkened. Captain, what you've exposed today is the tip of a much larger iceberg. There's been a faction within Earth Command that believed humanity needed to advance technologically at any cost. They've been operating secret projects and making unauthorized deals with alien species for over a decade. Elena felt the weight of this revelation. The conspiracy wasn't just about one rogue colonel and a single alien research vessel. It was a systematic betrayal of human values by people sworn to protect Earth's interests. What happens now? Elena asked. Now we do what humans do best, Admiral Chen replied with a slight smile. We learn from our mistakes and build something better. You've given us the chance to establish proper first contact protocols based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Sergeant Williams approached the group, carrying a datapad with the information he had downloaded from the alien vessel. Admiral, you need to see this. The Kethvar research data includes information about at least 6 other alien species in this sector. Some of them have been watching human expansion for years. Admiral Chen took the datapad and studied its contents. It seems Captain Vasquez's discovery has opened the door to a much larger universe than we realized. We're going to need new policies, new training programs, and new ways of thinking about humanity's place among the stars. Elena looked around the hangar bay at the mix of humans and aliens, all working together to process what had happened. Despite the trauma and betrayal that had brought them to this point, she felt hopeful about the future. Humans had proven they could choose compassion over exploitation, even when faced with superior alien technology. The real test would come in the months and years ahead, as humanity learned to navigate relationships with species that thought and felt in completely different ways. But Elena was confident that the values that had driven her to save those 12 people would guide Earth in making the right choices. As she watched Admiral Chen begin formal negotiations with the Kethvar representatives, Elena realized that her career as a fighter pilot might be over, but her role in shaping humanity's future among the stars was just beginning. 3 months after the incident at Kepler Station, Elena found herself standing in the newly constructed First Contact Center on Luna Base. The facility had been built in record time to serve as humanity's primary diplomatic hub for alien relations. It was a far cry from the sterile military outpost where her adventure had begun. Elena now held the rank of commander and served as director of xenological ethics, a position that hadn't existed before her discovery of the Kethvar conspiracy. Her job was to ensure that all future human-alien interactions adhered to strict ethical guidelines that protected the rights and dignity of all species involved. The rescue of those 12 people had triggered the largest investigation in Earth fleet history. The conspiracy Admiral Chen had mentioned turned out to involve over 40 high-ranking officials who had been making secret deals with various alien species. Some arrangements involved trading human test subjects for advanced technology, while others included selling Earth's mineral rights to mining corporations from distant worlds. Elena walked through the center's main corridor, passing offices where human and alien diplomats worked side by side on trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific collaboration projects. The transformation had been remarkable, but it hadn't been easy. The Kethvar had proven to be valuable allies in exposing the full scope of the conspiracy. Their research data had revealed the locations of 3 other illegal research facilities where humans were being held against their will. Elena had personally led the rescue missions that freed another 37 people from various experimental programs. She paused at a viewing window that looked out over the lunar landscape. In the distance, she could see the construction site where a joint human-alien research facility was being built. This one would operate under the new protocols she had helped develop, with full transparency and voluntary participation from all test subjects. Elena's assistant, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, approached with a datapad. "Commander, the morning briefing materials are ready. We have representatives from 4 different species requesting formal diplomatic relations with Earth." Elena smiled as she took the pad. Each new contact brought its own challenges, but also incredible opportunities for human advancement. The Kethvar had already shared medical technologies that could extend human lifespans by decades. The Veltar, insectoid beings from the Andromeda system, had offered to teach humans advanced terraforming techniques. Most remarkably, the crystalline Zorthak had proposed a joint exploration mission to galaxies beyond the local cluster. "Any word from the War Crimes Tribunal?" Elena asked as they walked toward the briefing room. "Colonel Hayes was sentenced to life imprisonment yesterday," Kim replied. "Admiral Graves and General Morrison received 20-year sentences for their roles in the conspiracy. The prosecution was able to prove that they knew humans were being tortured and chose to ignore it for the sake of technological advancement." Elena felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness at the news. Justice had been served, but the betrayal by trusted leaders had shaken many people's faith in Earth's institutions. Rebuilding that trust would take years of transparent and ethical leadership. They entered the briefing room where Elena's team was already assembled. The group included xenobiologists, linguists, ethicists, and military advisors from across human space. At the head of the table sat research coordinator Zeph Hai, who had become Elena's closest alien colleague and friend. "Good morning, everyone," Elena began. "Today we're reviewing first contact protocols for the Nethvi delegation arriving next week. As you know, they're a hive mind species that communicates through bioelectric fields rather than verbal language." Dr. Maria Santos, the team's chief xenobiologist, raised her hand. "Commander, we've been working with the Kethvar to develop translation protocols, but we're concerned about the neural interface requirements. How do we ensure informed consent from beings who share a collective consciousness?" Elena had been grappling with this exact question for weeks. Each new species they encountered challenged human concepts of individuality, consent, and rights in different ways. "That's why we're taking this slowly. The Nethvi have agreed to limited telepathic contact with volunteers from our psychic research division. No neural interfaces, no invasive procedures, just careful communication to establish basic understanding." Zephi gestured with one of its forearms. "Commander Vasquez, my people have had extensive contact with the Nethvi over several centuries. They are perhaps the most peaceful species we have encountered. Their hive mind structure makes deception essentially impossible, which could be valuable for treaty negotiations." Elena nodded thoughtfully. The Kethvar's insights had been invaluable in preparing for each new contact situation. Their centuries of experience with different species had helped humanity avoid dozens of potential diplomatic disasters. Lieutenant Kim activated the room's holographic display, showing a detailed model of the Nethvi ship that would arrive next week. The vessel was beautiful in an organic way, looking more like a living creature than a manufactured spacecraft. Intelligence reports suggest the ship houses approximately 50,000 individual Nethvi consciousness nodes, but they function as a single entity during decision-making processes. Elena studied the ship design and considered the implications. How did you negotiate with 50,000 beings who thought as one? How did you protect individual rights when individuality didn't exist in their society? Captain James Rodriguez, the military advisor, raised a concern that had been bothering Elena as well. "Commander, what if we encounter a species that's fundamentally hostile? All the aliens we've met so far have been interested in peaceful contact, but statistically that can't last forever." Elena had been preparing for this possibility since taking her current position. "That's why we're developing the defensive contact protocols. If we encounter a hostile species, our first priority is protecting human lives and Earth's security. But even then, we try to understand their motivations and find peaceful solutions before resorting to force." Dr. Santos pulled up another display showing the current status of all alien contact programs. "Commander, I have to say, the progress we've made in just 3 months is remarkable. We've established formal relations with 6 species, prevented 2 potential conflicts through diplomacy, and gained access to technologies that will benefit all of humanity. Elena felt proud of what they had accomplished, but she knew the real test was still ahead. As word of Earth's new openness to alien contact spread throughout the galaxy, more and more species would come calling. Some would be friendly, like the Kethvar. Others might be neutral traders like the Veltar, and eventually they would encounter beings with hostile intentions. Zephai seemed to read her thoughts. Commander, you concern yourself with future threats, but you should also consider future opportunities. The galaxy contains species with knowledge and abilities that could transform human civilization in ways you cannot yet imagine. Elena smiled at her alien friend. That's what I'm hoping for, Zephai. But I want to make sure we transform in ways that make us better, not just more powerful. As the briefing continued, Elena reflected on how much her life had changed since that day she disobeyed Colonel Hayes's orders. She had started as a fighter pilot focused on individual excellence and military discipline. Now she was helping to shape humanity's relationship with the entire galaxy. The 12 people she had rescued from the alien research facility had all chosen to remain involved in xenological work. They understood better than anyone the importance of treating all conscious beings with dignity and respect. Their experiences had become the foundation for the ethical guidelines that now governed all human-alien interactions. Elena looked around, the room at humans and aliens working together to build a better future. This was what humanity could accomplish when it chose cooperation over exploitation, understanding over fear, and compassion over power. The journey ahead would be challenging, but Elena was confident that the same values that had driven her to save those 12 people would guide humanity to its proper place among the stars. 1 year after the Kepler Station incident, Commander Elena Vasquez stood before the United Earth Assembly delivering her annual report on interspecies relations. The assembly hall was packed with representatives from every human colony, plus observers from 12 different alien species who had established formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Elena looked out at the diverse crowd and felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The conspiracy that had nearly sold out humanity's future had been completely dismantled, and in its place had grown a network of relationships based on mutual respect and shared knowledge. Honorable representatives, Elena began, this year has seen unprecedented progress in peaceful contact with our galactic neighbors. We have established trade relationships that have brought new technologies to human worlds, cultural exchanges that have enriched our understanding of consciousness and society, and scientific collaborations that are pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible. In the front row, Admiral Chen nodded approvingly. She had been promoted to head the new Department of Interstellar Affairs and had become one of Elena's strongest supporters. Beside her sat Research Coordinator Zephai, whose testimony had been crucial in exposing the full scope of the conspiracy. Elena continued her presentation, highlighting the major achievements of the past year. The medical advances shared by the Kethvar had eliminated several genetic diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. The Veltar terraforming techniques were being used to transform barren worlds into garden planets, capable of supporting billions of people. Most exciting of all, the crystalline Zorthak had invited humanity to join a galactic exploration consortium that would map uncharted regions of space. But Elena also addressed the challenges they had faced. Not every contact has been smooth or easy. We have encountered species whose values and methods of communication are so different from ours that establishing meaningful dialogue required months of careful work. We have also identified several potentially hostile civilizations that we continue to monitor from a safe distance. One of the assembly members raised her hand. Commander, there are still those who question whether humanity is ready for such extensive alien contact. How do we know we're not making ourselves vulnerable to exploitation or conquest? Elena had expected this question and had prepared her answer carefully. Representative Johnson, that's exactly the concern that led to the conspiracy we uncovered at Kepler Station. The fear that humanity was too weak or primitive to deal with alien species as equals led some of our leaders to make deals that traded human lives for alien technology. Elena activated a holographic display showing the current state of human space. What we've learned is that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our military power. It's our capacity for ethical decision-making, our ability to form genuine relationships with beings who are completely different from us, and our willingness to help others even when there's no immediate benefit to ourselves. Zephi stood and addressed the assembly directly. If I may, honored representatives, the Kethvar Collective has encountered hundreds of species throughout our existence. What makes humanity unique is not your scientific knowledge or your strategic capabilities. It is your instinct to value individual consciousness and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The alien continued, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. When Captain Vasquez discovered our research facility, she had every reason to flee and report our location to your military. Instead, she chose to risk her life to save people she barely knew. That decision revealed a quality that many galactic species have lost in their pursuit of advancement. Elena felt a warmth in her chest as she remembered that day. The choice to stay and help the trapped humans had seemed obvious at the time, but she was beginning to understand how significant it had been for the galaxy's perception of humanity. The session continued with questions about specific policies and future plans. Elena reported that Earth was being considered for membership in the Galactic Research Cooperative, an organization of advanced species that shared scientific knowledge freely among all members. Humanity's ethical guidelines for xenological research had impressed the cooperative's leadership and set new standards for how member species conducted their studies. After the formal session ended, Elena found herself in conversation with Dr. Williams, who had become the head of the Survivor Support Program. All 49 people rescued from the various illegal research facilities had been offered counseling, medical treatment, and new career opportunities. Most had chosen to remain involved in alien contact work. Commander, I wanted to thank you again for what you did, Williams said. Not just for saving our lives, but for making sure our experiences meant something positive for humanity's future. Elena shook her head. You and the others are the real heroes in the story. Your testimony helped expose the conspiracy, and your insights about alien psychology have been invaluable in establishing ethical contact protocols. As they talked, Elena noticed a commotion near the assembly hall entrance. A group of beings she didn't recognize were approaching, escorted by human security officers. The newcomers were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between different metallic colors. Their leader carried what appeared to be a crystalline device that pulsed with internal light. Admiral Chen hurried over to Elena. Commander, we have a situation. These are the Sildari, from the Omega Centauri cluster. They've traveled over 2 years to reach Earth because they heard about our ethical contact policies. Elena studied the alien delegation with interest. The Sildari leader stepped forward and spoke in perfect English, though Elena could see no visible mouth or vocal apparatus. Commander Vasquez, I am First Speaker Calamira of the Sildari Consortium. We have come seeking your aid in a matter of great urgency. What kind of aid? Elena asked, immediately alert for signs of another conspiracy or exploitation attempt. Calamira held up the crystalline device, and Elena could see images forming within its structure. Our people have encountered a species that harvests consciousness from other beings to power their technology. They have taken thousands of our people and are expanding their operations throughout our region of space. Elena felt a chill as she realized the implications. The same kind of exploitation that had been happening to humans at Kepler Station was occurring on a massive scale elsewhere in the galaxy. Why come to us? Surely other advanced species would be better equipped to handle this kind of threat. We have approached the Galactic Research Cooperative and other major powers, Calamira replied. They offer technological solutions and military assistance, but they do not understand the ethical dimensions of consciousness harvesting. You are the only species that has demonstrated both the capability and the moral framework necessary to address this crisis. Elena looked around at the assembled humans and aliens. In the space of 1 year, humanity had gone from being victims of consciousness harvesting to being asked to lead a galactic effort to stop it. The responsibility was overwhelming, but she knew they couldn't turn away from beings who needed help. Admiral Chen stepped forward. First Speaker, Earth will need to consult with our allies and assess the full scope of the situation before we can commit to any action. But I can assure you that we take this matter very seriously. As the Sildari delegation was escorted to diplomatic quarters, Elena realized that humanity's greatest test was just beginning. They had proven they could handle first contact responsibly and build peaceful relationships with alien species. Now they would have to prove they could stand up to truly hostile forces while maintaining the ethical principles that had made them respected throughout the galaxy. Elena looked out at the stars visible through the assembly hall's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, beings were suffering the same fate that had nearly befallen the 12 people she had rescued. The little girl inside her who had dreamed of flying among the stars could never have imagined that humanity's greatest adventure would begin with choosing compassion over convenience. But that choice had led them to this moment, where Earth stood ready to become a beacon of hope for oppressed beings throughout the galaxy. Elena knew the road ahead would be dangerous and difficult, but she also knew that humanity was ready for whatever challenges awaited them among the stars. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was also home to species that had lost their way in the pursuit of power. Humanity's mission now was to remind the galaxy what it meant to value consciousness, protect the innocent, and choose cooperation over exploitation. Elena smiled as she thought about the words she would include in her next report. Humanity's greatest strength has always been its heart. Now we have the chance to share that strength with the entire galaxy.